What is up, everybody? Welcome back here to the Quarters Podcast. We're getting down to it. We're doing a 2025 NFL mock draft. All 32 teams here on the PFF Mock Draft Simulator. We're going to be working through it, talking through it. These are not predetermined picks, so we're bound to screw something up as we do there. We're going to leave off your favorite player. You're going to yell at us in the comments, and that's all right. But we kind of got the draft order kind of situated. We got the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl in full force now, so we can start diving into these guys and seeing what are the best team fits for these players. So stick with us. All right, we're going to get into this. We're going to be picking as we go through each pick. I will say this. The one thing I've loved about our mock drafts that we do here on this channel is that all the people in the comments, you guys could be general managers tomorrow. You need to quit your jobs and just go do it. Like, go find a job out there because everybody here thinks that they could just be a general manager out there. And that's why we do it. So Titans are on the board. A lot of talk about quarterbacks right now, all of these things. We're going to give it to Randy because he's the youngest of the crew. I just made that up. I don't really know. I don't remember. But we're going to go ahead and they're perfect. See, I do know about you, Randy. See, so no trades to start this one off. So we're just gonna kind of go, needs where it's at there. So Randy, you're on the clock with the Titans. Where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, they try to reset the whole thing here, get a new GM in, and pick a generational prospect. Unfortunately, I think they believe that is Cam Ward, and that's where I'm going to go here. I do think that gives a little bit up for debate of who they go, but Cam Ward makes the most sense for this QB coach / head coach. I think it makes sense for how he wants to build the offense. So just a statistical, guy that can just throw the ball over the field, plays with poise in the pocket, maybe a little bit too much poise at time, but I do think he has the ability to throw as much as Joe Burrow does and hopefully make at least half as many plays.
The main thing that we've heard about Cam Ward over the last couple of weeks is that the leadership stuff is really, really real. Mm-hmm. He walked into Miami initially and said he wasn't throwing the ball to Xavier Restrepo, and Restrepo was like, "What are you doing, dude?" And he goes, "I know you're good. I already watched all your film. I need to see if these guys can catch the ball, and I need to build trust with them." Like, that's stuff that's the special part. And I think the more that the Titans and the whole group is saying different things right now. So to me, they're just putting out as many smoke screens as they possibly can, and they're going to take a quarterback here. So good call here.
I will say, I think Mel Kiper, for what it's worth, obviously, I think he put it best in his release of his first mock of, with Field Yates, on a podcast of just a lot of these teams are only going to have like 3 to 5, blue chip prospects, and the rest are all really close together. So if you need a quarterback, why is it crazy that they're going this early? Because they're ranked very closely to all the other players, and the other players aren't really necessarily high-profile positions like quarterback. And I think that's, again, if you think Abdul Carter is generational, if you think Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, any of them, I guess it makes sense to me, Mason Graham. But I think the quarterback here for the Titans is an absolute must if this coach and new GM have a chance of succeeding.
Yeah. I mean, they have to do it. I think with this roster there, I will say with the generational talk, I think they'd be willing to listen to some offers, like depending on how Godfather those offers are. I just don't see in this class them being that unless someone falls in love with Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and they think like generational, we want to get those guys there. But how much are you willing to give up capital there to go get those two guys? When you're thinking of that's usually the quarterback, right? We haven't really seen that much capital to get moved there. So yeah, that's a great pick. And I think, hey, they need the quarterback. They need that in that. And that coaching staff is on a tight leash. Like if you look at what happened to the general manager, like that ownership group is not messing around in terms of just getting rid of you. So you kind of lean on that quarterback. You kind of reset your clock a little bit. I think that's kind of what that coaching staff's going to want to do there. We're going to give Christian the Browns pick because he used to be a former Browns fan there. So we're going to go with him. Number 2, first quarterbacks off the board. Draft needs, according to PFF, quarterback, running back, tackle, corner. They could use an edge as well. Where are you leaning?
Yeah, they could use an edge as well. I think I actually would put edge ahead of most of these positions. Maybe not tackle, and certainly not quarterback. They definitely need to fix that. But I'm going to take the best player in the draft, and I'm going to take Abdul Carter here. I think the notion that you can pair Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter together when you've got one. I mean, Myles Garrett's a little bit of everything, right? Like he's a power rusher, he's a speed rusher, he can do everything. But if you put a really efficient, effective speed rusher opposite Myles Garrett, we haven't really seen that in this Browns defense in his entire career. I think they're going to be creative in getting a quarterback to Cleveland that can play football. I think right now they have a problem in that they don't have that, but I don't necessarily think that they would fall in love with Shedeur Sanders or any of these quarterbacks at the top of the draft. So give me the best player in the draft. I think that's Abdul Carter, even over Travis Hunter. And I just think you take best player. I think the Browns should be listening to offers, quite frankly. I think they're a very good spot to trade down in. But once again, like you just said, Kevin, I don't know how many teams are going to be willing to trade up in this class unless they do fall in love with Carter or Hunter. Since we're not doing trades, the Browns are going to stick and take Carter.
What do you think, Randy?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something we continually keep saying on here that the Browns really haven't had a dominant edge two next to Garrett pretty much ever, except a little bit with Smith here, even in his aging seasons. Getting a guy that has grown leaps and bounds this year and has been just a true absolute difference maker, getting the full year of edge, unlike what Micah Parsons was able to do. I do think he's just ready to step in, especially in an edge two role with, if not the best defensive and pass rusher, the second best, to learn from that. And, Myles Garrett, a guy that is trying to develop every tool in the toolbox ever and learn new ones and help everyone on the team. I think this is a perfect situation to really, we're going to retool this whole thing and kind of give the keys to the kingdom to Carter in a few years. It just makes the most sense. And like Christian said, you can argue who's the best. Hunter makes sense, but Carter makes more sense for the Browns than Travis Hunter does.
Yeah, no, I think so too. Especially with how that coaching staff builds out their defense and their roster. Like I do think that Carter's the guy. I love how you kind of turn around on Carter, Christian. It's taking you a little bit, but I like how you call him the best player of the draft.
Yeah, it did take me a little while, and quite frankly, that's just attributed to his development this year, man. Like before the season, there were so many questions about what he could be as a pass rusher, even though we saw the tools and the traits and things like that. But I couldn't have guessed that he would develop that rapidly, and create this wonderful toolbox that he can really beat any edge rusher. I think folks have questioned if he's the best player because he's a little bit smaller on the smaller side, but he's really not. He's just like a normal sized speed edge rusher. If you look, I mean, he's listed at 250, and I bet by the time we get to the combine, he's probably 255, 260. So man, I still like his teammate, Denai Dennis Sutton, but Carter was much, much better this year.
Yeah, no, he was. He's an impact there. God, I really didn't do this mock very well because I really don't want to pick for the Giants. But I'm at 3 with the Giants. I mean, everybody, the elephant in the room knows they need a quarterback. I think, when you're looking at just like where they're at as a franchise and bringing both the general manager and head coach back, I mean, they're on a short leash. And I think this pick really comes down to 2 things, like who I want to pick and who I think they're going to pick is different. I think Shedeur is someone that they would take because I think when they're looking at their contracts, they're like, hey, we got to get a quarterback here. But I could also see them being a trade out spot too, if someone believes in them. Maybe the Raiders move up. I just don't know with Carroll being there now. He found Russell Wilson late. Remember Matt Flynn? They gave him that contract, and Russell Wilson was in that mid range, and they grafted him. Maybe the Raiders kind of do that same playbook there. It's hard for me to pick Shedeur for the Giants, and I know they need a quarterback really bad, but I'm taking Travis Hunter. I'm just going to take the best player available. I think that if you draft Travis Hunter to the Giants, him and Malik Neighbors would be a hell of a lot of fun, especially on offense, depending on how much they want to use them there. They can be that piece. And if you're talking generational, I mean, we still use that term a lot, but if you're mentioning just a player that can impact the field on both sides of the ball, and you could see that based on the numbers that you see on the screen, I mean, he fits that, right? And I think the Giants have needed a guy like this. I think they have Neighbors who looks like they hit on that pick. They did a great job there. If they can hit on Hunter too, and then even if they are bad, maybe they have a bridge, maybe they'll get a veteran or whatever, you're still looking at Arch Manning next year, maybe a more talented Drew Aller, more talented quarterback class next year. And maybe you have to plug it there, or you wait till the second round, get Jackson Dart, or you wait till the third round, you try to grab a Quinn Ewers, or you try to find that. I know Fields has been mocked there a lot in terms of free agency or what they're going to do. So I think there's other options for them. It's hard for me to look at Shedeur and say that's a ceiling play. It's more of a floor play, whereas Travis is a ceiling play. So I'll lean Travis, but fully aware that they probably will take Shedeur to save their jobs.
I love this. The more I do mock drafts, the more I fade the quarterbacks outside of. I do think the Titans are taking Cam Ward, but then past that, like there's this big discussion around the Senior Bowl right now of Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, who's going to emerge as QB3, and it's like, man, I just don't know that matters. Like, I don't think those guys are going to be first rounders, quite frankly. And if that's the case, I do think Shedeur is better than Kenny Pickett was in his class, but I think like that same. I won't be shocked if that's the range that he goes in, especially with the reports that some teams don't view him as a first rounder, and I don't blame them. I don't have a first round grade on Shedeur Sanders, so I think there will be teams that agree with me on that evaluation there.
Yeah, and to be fair, we're also too that like Michael Penix and Bo Nix, we had like top 40 grades. So saying like those are still good quarterbacks and good systems with the right fit. So Shedeur still could be really good. I do think there are a few teams that really make a ton of sense, and there's a few of these teams like the Giants or the Raiders or the Jets even that if they traded up in the back of the first, it'd make a lot more sense in a team building perspective. But either way, someone's going to fall in love with Shedeur. We'll see who it is. I don't necessarily know it's the Giants. Dable's kind of worked with a couple different style of quarterbacks here. So only really one has worked. So I don't know if this is the right fit, but Travis Hunter is the right fit for any team.
Yeah. That's what it comes down to.
The one that's worked for Dable, to be fair, is like an MVP candidate and in the AFC. Yeah, in the AFC Championship all the time. So it's a little different.
Yeah. He's kind of rode that for a while now, and now it's starting to seem like maybe it's just Josh Allen. Like maybe that's kind of what it looks like. Like especially with Brady now. I mean, Joe Brady was exiled in Carolina. Then he goes here. Now everybody's talking about him. Well, maybe not after the last game against the Chiefs. But that play call and everything's there. It's like, yeah, it's Allen there. All right, we're up on the Patriots. Where are you going, Randy?
Yeah, so this is one of the few teams that really can just pick whatever they want here. Yeah. I think it's obvious offensive line is the biggest need. However, I think that's something that they're smartly going to address with veterans. Once you bring Vrabel in, I don't think he's going to wait around in this offensive line to make it work. There's been a lot of rumors of them going after T. Higgins or trading for A.J. Brown. I'm just taking Ted McMillan, a guy that I think can just fill that role for you. Again, this whole pick for the Patriots is going to be predetermined for everyone at draft night by what the moves they've made in the free agency. I do think we'll know right away who they're going with here, whether they filled these team needs that you see on the screen of running back, receiver, offensive line. So they go Mason Graham or Will Johnson. But getting an actual threat of wide receiver, an absolute stud in Ted McMillan, a guy that can do everything, great after the catch, great at the catch point, good route runner, target hog. This is exactly what this team needs to truly develop what they believe is their quarterback of the future, and I think what most people believe. And the only way to do that is to get a real wide receiver core around this guy. I think you have a good amount of really good wide receiver 3s and 4s, and you have nothing else behind that. I think you get a number one here. I still think you could spend all the money you want and get T. Higgins or trade for A.J. Brown. I think you're still a smart team here, taking Ted McMillan, fully investing in your quarterback, spend the money on the offensive line. Let's make this work. We'll figure out the defense. You have a defensive coach that's gotten the best out of the Titans in the past with less talent.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I think even if they go get one of those two wide receivers, and I think T. Higgins is number one, their number one target this offseason just with everything I've seen and heard. But, I mean, you still have to get another guy. Like, they don't Demario Douglas is a fine like wide receiver 3, and Jalen Polk just didn't work out, and the Elliott Wolf and everyone in the New England front office has basically said like, yeah, we thought that it was going to be a little bit different. Honestly, like this wide receiver core was not good enough. So to me, Tet McMillan is the easy pick. I do think they would look at tackle if they miss out on some of those bigger names in free agency, but they have so much cap space that I think they'll be able to overpay just to make sure that they have something in front of Drake May next year.
Yeah, they've always been able to build the interior through the depths of the drafts. The tackles have been a little bit harder to nail in the later picks for the Patriots. So I do think this is okay, we're going to take the best player on the board for our offense, and we're going to go offensive line next pick type of move.
Yeah. All right, Christian. First Liam Cohen pick, the Liam Cohen era. I don't know if you saw his Duval today, but he's got zero aura out there. Like, I don't know what he's doing there. Where you go? No Balky anymore. Trent Balky's gone. He got fired, so they get Cohen in there. At number 5, off the board is Tet, Travis, Abdul, and Cam Ward. Needs, I mean, there's a lot of needs all across the board. They list the center, guard, defensive lines, corner. I mean, everywhere's on there. Where are you leaning?
So this one's tough because I do think that there's a world in which the Jaguars say, hey, our offensive line hasn't quite been good enough. Our current tackle situation is not very good. Anton Harrison really hasn't played out the way I think they thought he would. Walker Little has been up and down. On the flip side of things, like they really need some production out of their defensive tackle room. So Mason Graham makes a ton of sense here. I normally give them, one of those two, or you throw in Will Johnson, but there have been some questions about Will Johnson floating around there. So I don't necessarily know that he's going to go in the top 5. I'm just going to go with a bit of chalk here and go with Mason Graham.
Why don't you take your D1 or your number 1 defensive lineman?
Because I think that the NFL is gonna still lean Mason Graham, but I think when we'll get to Walter Nolan, don't worry, he's coming off the board soon. But I'm gonna take Mason Graham. I think they could use some interior pressure is kind of the main thing here. I think they've got enough out of their edge room that they're feeling pretty good about it. But in this division, I think you're going to have to get to the quarterback. I think, looking at what CJ Stroud does under pressure this last year, I think you can make a case that that's the method to beating the Texans. So you get Mason Graham, who's really good across the board. He's a good run defender. He's a good pass rusher. Once again, he's my DT2, but he's still a blue chip prospect for me. He's my number 5 player, so this is right on the mark as far as value goes on my board. So,
I mean, that's a good pick. I think that he would fill a lot of holes for them, and that's a good kind of start off the regime with someone like that. I mean, and they would hit. Like, I know Balky, he gets his shit for well-deserved shit, by the way. Like, he deserved it, but he did hit on Brian Thomas Jr. And so having him, Mason Graham back to back, I mean, that is building blocks, right? I mean, they talk about it all the time. We talk about drafts. You talk about stuff. You just don't want to miss these first round guys, because once you start missing these first round guys, that's when your roster starts getting depleted there. All right. I'm on the clock. I got the Raiders. Why not? I'm going to take Shedeur Sanders. So we're going to go quarterback here. We're going to draft Shedeur. I just think it just makes too much sense. I think that they need a quarterback. They've been wanting to have a quarterback for a long time. I do see some truthers out there for their quarterbacks on their roster, which I don't know if they watched the Raiders play this year, and I understand kind of what that looks like. But hey, when you're thinking of, I mean, it's funny because he's comped to Geno Smith a little bit sometimes, and now that he's got his Pete Carroll there, I think that's an interesting fit. I think he fits within the offense, whatever they try to do there. And I don't hate if they address more needs later. They get a couple more wide receivers. They got Brock Bowers there. I think Brock and Shedeur would actually work pretty well together because he's hyper targets Travis Hunter last year as well. So, like, if you're going to see that, you're going to see a lot of targets of Bowers. I think they can build around him. I'm not saying he's a high ceiling play here. The Raiders need a quarterback. I mean, first and foremost. And, like, there's guys on the board that you could really pick here. Will Johnson possibly comes to mind. Although, yeah, there is some buzz out there about that. I mean, they could go offensive line as well. I mean, they do need that. I've seen him edge at some points, but I think it's just too good to pass up there with Shedeur. I don't see Ashton Jeanty being the pick here. I think that the running back class, I see Ashton Jeanty sometimes get mocked there, and it's just this running back class is so deep. they probably take a quarterback and rather just fill in another guy later. A Travion Henderson, a Judkins, a Caleb Johnson. You can keep going down the list if you want to. There's 27 guys in the class that you could be like, yeah, just play for the Raiders. So to me, take the quarterback. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, he fits what this system should be built out as. I do think they are going to, I think they're going to probably bring in another veteran running back. I think they're going to draft another one highly. It's going to be day 2 for sure. But you have, you spent picks and capital on your offensive line. It probably overperformed with the 2 rookies starting most of the year. Jacoby Myers is a reliable wide receiver too that can move the chains and make the big plays. Brock Bowers is a godsend to the organization that they probably didn't deserve. And then, so the offense has a lot of building blocks. If you have a true, good floor with some ceiling quarterback here, another wide receiver piece, I think you could really do some damage, especially with a run-focused system, which we know is what they're pretty much going to instill here. And I do think, like you said, Geno Smith, Teddy Bridgewater, Russell Wilson, I think those are all quarterbacks in the same kind of, tier, with a high, good floor and can give you the spectacular plays. I think that's something that could really work for this team. And the defense has some holes, obviously, but you have a lot more picks to make here. So I think it's a smart play. Just get the quarterback of the future. You give Pete Carroll a 3-year window to figure it out with him before you reset it with a new coach that isn't 70-something. But I do think this was a smart play to fully just reset this team under Brady's vision, clearly.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add here outside of, Randy, would you have taken Shedeur with the Jets pick here next?
If he was there, I probably would have.
Okay. Who are you taking instead?
What a transition.
Yeah, I'm on it.
I know this is a tough, because I think Mason Graham is like the obvious pick here, who's already off the board. And then you start to talk about the other D tackles, and this isn't necessarily a team that's like devoid of, D-line talent. So I just think with them likely losing the 30-year-old corner this year that has performed really well in Reed, I think it has to be Will Johnson. This is a team that, even with a little bit of question marks of the injury history this last year, what they saw in the tapes beforehand, pairing that with Sauce Gardner is the craziest thing possible in this draft. So I do think it's a smart pick. It rivals the Browns taking Abdul Carter, in my opinion, as a tandem for defense. Just a lights-out shutdown corner when healthy and when, really roaring and willing to play. And I think this new system with, Aaron Glenn there, with these defensive players around him, I think they'll truly unlock Will Johnson to his top potential, which is a shutdown corner, which means you have to throw over the middle of the field and get the ball off quick, because the Jets do have some good edge rushers. They have, obviously, Quentin Williams in the interior. This would be a scary tandem. And again, with how the board felt, like, unless you're going Will Campbell to uphold this offensive line, which I think makes some sense, or double down an edge rusher, it's just not the best thing. I don't see this as a team that's going to truly think that Walter Nolan is a top 10 talent.
That's fair. This is kind of what I was hoping you would do, honestly, because the more I look into it, like behind DJ Reed, they don't have a lot, and they're not. I just don't see them bringing him back. He kind of had a down year. I think, his price point won't really match what their timeline is. But I also just don't understand the direction of the Jets right now. So just go get a really good player that, speed questions aside, which is the main question that's floating out there. Will Johnson is, we've comped him to Patrick Surtain, and I don't necessarily think he's quite as good, but there's an element of, if you can have 2 islands out there, like you said, it's really, really tough to play offense against this team. So good pick.
Yeah, no, that's a good pick. I think in that division, you need these guys. You need lockdown corners on the outside, especially when you're playing against Josh Allen. I mean, It's pretty simple. I mean, and Tua to an extent. I mean, we can make Tua jokes all we want, but like you're gonna need that and that. And then with Drake May, I mean, that's part of it also. If Drake May gets Ted McMillan, you need guys like that can lock him down the outside, and you figure it out there. I think you made a good point, Glenn, though. I mean, he's a great coach, and if he can get these guys kind of playing and dialed in, he's got to get the quarterback figured it out though, like we've always been saying for the Jets. I feel like we've been talking about that because Saleh had that defense locked in too. So like that's why I'm interested to see kind of what that organization is going to do there. All right, let's go. This is where it can get weird. I'm gonna let everybody know right now. So Carolina's on the clock at 8. Where are you going at 8?
I really like that intro to this pick. This is where it's gonna get weird. I'm gonna go with Mike Green, the edge from Marshall.
Okay.
To Carolina inside the top 10. I'm now the low man on Mike Green, I guess. PFF now has him as their number 11 player. Shout out Trevor Sikkema for catching up on the Mike Green Marshall film. It's an interesting one because, folks were a little scared of what he would weigh in as. He has short arms. We saw that at the Senior Bowl this week. But he came in over 250, and I think that was kind of the benchmark. Over 245 is kind of what I was personally looking for, because he plays big. He plays the run really well, super efficiently for a smaller speed type of edge. But man, are his pass rush skills elite? They're among the best in this class. He's my edge 2 right now behind Abdul Carter. I think that when you're looking at this Panthers roster, you're looking at how the heck are they getting to the quarterback? That's what we've been saying kind of since they traded Brian Burns. This is a step in the right direction. I think they've got a lot figured out on that offense. I think free agency is going to be kind of important for them to, they don't have a whole lot of cap space for a team that bad, but I think they'll be able to add some wide receivers to that room and maybe fill it out a little bit better. So I'm not really worried about the offensive side. Let's go get Mike Green, get to the quarterback. This is going to be something that, they've needed to do for a while, and it might seem like a reach now, but I promise you, when we get down to the nitty gritty here in like March, I think people look at this pick and be like, yeah, Mike Green, top 10 pick, makes sense.
Yeah, obviously you're going to, on passing downs and most downs, put him next to Derek Brown, so he's not going to get double teamed. I think that'll help with the weight and arm length concerns, whatever they may be. I do think this is a guy that should be able to get to double-digit sacks, maybe not first couple seasons, but I do think he'll get there. Just a good talent, hard worker. I think he's going to show out this week as well. So I would be excited for this. I do think, I think there's other people on the board, obviously, that people are putting there because they're a little bit bigger or they're a little bit longer. I think you just take the production here. I do like it. I think this is kind of like a no-nonsense pick for the Panthers.
Yeah. I would have taken him for the Saints if he was still there. So that's a good pick because you sniped me there in terms of that. I think the Saints are hard because they're in salary cap hell. We don't know as we're recording
they're
this.
Hell of everything.
They're in quarterback hell. Running back hellish. Kamara is still there. We have Kendra there. But again, getting a little older. Wide receivers, a lot of it didn't play because of concussions for a long time. Rashid Shaheed was injured. They could go wide receiver as well. On the defensive side, they're getting older. They really are. And I think that this is really just comes down to what that coaching staff is going to look like. And as we recorded this, we don't know who that is. I know they're going to interview Kellen Moore, and that's a possibility. Now, if they interview Kellen Moore, I don't find it crazy to think Ashton Genty might not be this pick. With what they've done with Saquon there in that offense, it wouldn't shock me to see, you know what? I'm just going to give Ashton Genty 350 carries and then make sure Derek Carr can't kill me for this first year and then just figure it out after that. That might be the scenario here because you're trying to do it. But, for me, I think I'm going to go interior defensive line. And I'm gonna take Walter Nolan and piss it off. So I'm going to put him up there. And I think for me with Walter, Christian's kind of obviously, and then to an extent Randy as well, talking about him. He's just a disruptor. And I think he's starting to get a lot of buzz out there from a lot of different guys being like a top 10 guy, maybe number 1 at his position, right? His D tackle 1. I think he can. I think him and Brian Breezy, I believe that's how you say his name. Those two guys could be just monsters on the inside. Brian's looked good this year. They kind of developed into something. Those two guys can be monsters. And then that's basically how you build out your roster, right? Because you can't really build out this in free agency with how you do it. You build that interior defensive line. I think offensively, they can kind of put some things together there, and they just get youth, right? They're just going to have to kind of take some bumps early, but you're talking about a defensive line that could create havoc in that division after a couple of years, and then you just build out. If the coach has a proper plan, whoever they bring in, they decide to go this route and then build out inside out, kind of look at it like, hey, we're going to build up that defensive line, just be disruptors up front, and then we'll figure it out after that from the offensive perspective. I think that's the way to go. But Saints going to have an idea, they have to have that figured out and say, this is why we're drafting this kid. This is the scheme that we want to go. Or are we just going to continue to patch things? I see wide receivers sometimes for the Saints. I don't know. Like, I feel like look who's throwing the football. Like, that is just a stopgap, I feel like, until they find a quarterback. And sometimes that you don't. So build up a legit top 5 line on the defensive side, and that'll get you pretty far. And if you can kind of find a serviceable quarterback, I think you're cooking with something in that division.
I mean, this is a team that has consistently put themselves in caps, hell, to put it lightly. And then they also trade away most of their picks. So there's a reason they're not the best roster, even with some of the best veterans we've seen in the last decade on this team. You have absolute studs. It's just their careers have been a little bit wasted because they have not maximized and allowed themselves to fully heal from what they had on this roster with Drew Brees. They've been hemorrhaging since then. And with the grain of salt, but for what it's worth, this was, when healthy, a good offense for about 5 weeks. So, like you said, yeah, get another weapon on here, maybe another offensive lineman. But I think if you do enough on the defense, Carr can win 17 to 13 games.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, he can. So, but if you want him to score 30 every game, like he kind of was to start the year, it's going to be tough sledding.
At first, when you said that, I thought you meant that the Saints were going 17-0, and then you clarified it. And I was like, okay, that's better. You're right.
No.
For the caveat to that is the offense looked good, but Clint Kubiak was running it, and he's gone.
Yeah.
So I'm a little nervous about what that outlook is, and they probably have a head coach by the time you're watching this, and this is super dated. So all I'm going to say is Lance Zierlein also has Walter Nolan as DT1, and so shout out Lance. We don't always agree, Lance Zierlein. We rarely agree, actually, but
I don't know.
That one, I'm with you.
You think Lance knows you or no?
He's yelled at me before.
Okay, so he does.
On something on Twitter, unprompted too. So he knows of me. I'm out there lurking, and he knows.
Well, now he can skeet at you since you're over on Skeeter, so you can kind of go over there.
Shout out Blue Sky.
Randy, Chicago needs running back. Offensive line. I'm not even gonna go through the positions. Every position on the offensive line, edge possibly, maybe wide receiver, maybe. Probably later. Where are you leaning with Chicago?
Yeah, I think this has to be offensive line. I do like some of these other players. Obviously, Austin Genty would be fun, but this to me comes down to what you truly think your offense needs between a pure tackle and a guy that can play tackle or a guard. So I think this is a team that should be drafting for upside and option. So that's why it's Will Campbell for me. I do think if you just think you need a left tackle tomorrow, you take Josh Simmons if you're the Bears. But because I do think you need a tackle, but also a guy that could play everywhere and just give you the chance of the best 5, which you haven't had in forever. I think getting an absolute warrior of an offensive lineman that has been consistent throughout his whole career. Maybe he hasn't reached the ceiling that people have wanted or that we envisioned for him this year, but he has been a good pass blocker every year, and he's steadily been a consistent run blocker. This is a team that's going to be focused on running the ball, obviously, but I do think this is a team that will start off by, okay, we have some good wide receivers here. Let's protect Caleb. Let's get some of that bad habits out of the way because he knows he can actually stand in the pocket for once in his entire career. So let's get Will Campbell in, a guy that can do everything. I think will show, obviously, he not coming to the Senior Bowl or anything. So people may question a couple things in his arm length and all this stuff, but I think he's a starting offensive lineman for you day one.
Yeah, we should get that stuff at the combine though. So I'm hopeful that even if the arms come in short, that's fine. Put them at center. The Bears have 5 holes on their offensive line, in my opinion. Really probably more like 3.5 holes or something like that. But because Darnell Wright's going to start, but you take the best tackle and then you just roll with it. I do think that his versatility puts him above some other guys in this regard, in the top 10 at least. I do think Ashton Genty is an interesting pick if they were to spend about $700 million on the offensive line beforehand. But if they don't do that, then you can't take Ashton Genty. Sorry, you're not allowed.
I think before we go in a sec, because I know we need to kind of speed it up. I will say this
Probably.
because I wrote a whole thing on the Bears, this like fantasy perspective on Ben Johnson, what he's trying to do. I think people forget, like they say Ashton Genty, which maybe they do, right? Like they have to spend money in free agency, like we just mentioned with the offensive line and defensive line, and we have to do that. But I think the big thing that I have, like with the Ashton Genty pick, and like the Lions picked Gibbs once they were established. They built out that roster and they looked at it and they said, "Hey, Gibbs is a luxury, but we have 2 picks. So like, hey, we have 2 picks here in that draft, and we can use Gibbs as our luxury pick, and we're ready. Like we're ready to go." I don't think they're going to look at this roster and him be like, "Yeah, like that, we're ready to go." I think they'll plug it with Swift, and then they'll get somebody maybe in free agency or later, like a Judkins type, like a Hampton type later. I think that's the better option for them right now. And then maybe then they'll go after a legit running back once they're established. I think that's probably where it goes.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I would love to have Ashton Genty on this team, but it's just you can't do it. You can't do it yet. All right, I'm on the clock for the San Francisco 49ers. I think that offensive line is the move once again. I think certainly they could use an edge rusher opposite Bosa. I think they could use some interior defensive linemen. I think I'm going to go Armin Membu, the offensive tackle / maybe guard in this scheme. To me, he's a tackle. I've graded him out. He's my being completely honest, he's my offensive tackle 4 right now. I think the athleticism and the movement skills, though, are super attractive to a Kyle Shanahan offense. I think among the top 4, so Will Campbell just came off the board. I have him ahead. Josh Simmons is there, but he does not move well enough to be in Kyle Shanahan's scheme. And Kelvin Banks, to me, also doesn't move well enough to be in Kyle Shanahan's scheme. So I think the versatility that we just talked about with Will Campbell kind of applies to Membu as well. But this kid, I don't think has reached his ceiling yet. He's very young. I think he's still developing, but the feet are freaking smooth, and the athleticism is going to pop off once we get to the combine. 49ers are kind of out of their window, I think. I think the window's closed for them, especially since they're about to pay Brock Purdy a max contract or whatever the max contract you can think of for a Brock Purdy type player is. But I think it's going to be a couple years. So now they can kind of build out the interior, stop with the luxury picking or trading back or whatever it is. I don't think that that's the move for the 49ers. So offensive tackle it is.
I mean, it's a team that we've been saying for a couple of years now. Like they need to reinvest in the offensive line. They need to reinvest, and they haven't, except in later picks. And a couple of them have played pretty well at times. But this is the time to get somebody that can start day one. Obviously, again, it's played guard and tackle at the college level. I think he's measured well this week at the Senior Bowl. I do think we'll see a good enough week from him that teams will be comfortable with him playing right tackle. But either way, this team could use a right guard or right tackle for the future. So it's a smart pick.
Yeah.
All right.
Ashton Genty, right?
No, I'm not taking Ashton Genty for the Cowboys here. I'm drafting the Cowboys here. I know. I'm gonna get weird because I think that with Schottenheimer there and Jerry and these guys, I think defense is gonna be this pick. Now, honestly, when I was looking at this, they need a running back, yes, but in a loaded running back class, and they're not close to contending. This Dallas team is not very good. So
They're bad.
I don't see why you would draft Genty there. I did think about maybe taking Kelvin Banks Jr. and if he could play guard, possibly, because we're probably going to need to replace guard after this offseason where it's at. Maybe push him inside. But I'm going to get weird. I'm going to take Michael Williams. And I'm just going to have another dominant edge on that defensive line. And I'm going to say, you know what? You and Micah Parsons are just going to wreak havoc back there. I thought about taking Kenneth Grant, but I really like Kenneth Grant. I don't want to ruin him by taking him the defensive tackles from Michigan. It just does not work out there. So to me, I think it's interior line will be a dominant pass rusher, and him and Parsons could do well together on that defensive line. And it gives them a building block because I think defensively they need to build out that way. So give me Michael Williams here. I know that people are gonna scream at the top of the lungs for Genty, but I'm gonna guarantee some scouts might not have Genty even as running back 1 because there is a loaded running back class, and I know people will automatically assume that, but who knows what the board's gonna look like, especially Dallas's board as someone who's really been seeing Dallas's boards for the last few years. Like I could see them being like, yeah, Michael's one of our guys there. So give me Michael just for upside ceiling, him and Parsons, a defensive line. This is a deep defensive line class as well. They could fill that defensive line spot with a round 3 guy if they decide to go running back round 2 or whatever it looks like. So that's kind of how I think it plays out. I think they do go defensive line, edge, and probably running back in the first 3 to 4 picks.
Yeah, I just hope Michael has a good pre-draft process.
Yeah,
he's not at the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl because he's an underclassman. It's weird how we focus so much on these seniors for like forever, and then the first some Senior Bowl guys are going to go in the first round, but like most of the picks are the underclassmen that declare because they're so freaking good that's why they're declaring. Michael's one of those guys, but I think he's going to do really well at the combine and kind of vault back into this area. So I like it. It's weird for sure, but you know what? We have Mike Green in the top 10. And so we're getting weird. And that's going to be, this mock draft. It's just the weird mock draft. We'll title it that once we publish it.
Once he started talking about Jerry, I thought he was going to go Arkansas with Landon Jackson.
No.
But
Oh,
I will say, Lawrence has had a lot of injuries and hasn't really performed of late.
Yeah.
They desperately missed Armstrong this year as a true rotational edge too there. They really had nothing else there. No one's really truly worked out. They need to replace that. They really could restructure or get rid of Lawrence and just reset that. I mean, they need to pay more people, so it makes sense to do it. So getting a guy that has a high upside and can be a freak athlete alongside another freak athlete, it makes a lot of sense. You've invested in the D-tackle room. True. Neither have really played up to what you wanted them to yet, but I do think they've shown some flashes. So I think that's something where you get an edge rusher here, you invest in this deep D-tackle class later with an upside guy to hopefully fill out some need there for you. It's a good pick. I think the fun picks and, it's the Jerry picks are always the splash picks, but they've gone offensive line the last 2 years. So people are starting to back off that. I think this the team that desperately needs to rebuild through the trenches. It makes sense. Yeah, Luther, Burton, and Genty would be fun. Ibuka would be great. But this team isn't winning next year.
My counter is their wide receiver 2 situation is rough.
It is.
Almost threw
it is
in there. Shut up.
But I think there are enough upside shots at wide receiver in this class, even going into day 3, that you could get a value veteran receiver, stuff that they've been trying to work out for the wide receiver 2 role. Then you can get someone like that this year and then take a couple upside shots and be super happy with how this room develops.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Ashton Genty to the Dolphins.
Yes, for the 65th running back for this team, Ashton Genty. I don't think he runs quite fast enough, unfortunately, even though would be, I would say, the best running back on the team. Yep. Whatever, pure running back at least. This is a team, again, you see they could use D-tackle, they could use safety. I'm going offensive line. You have a well above average quarterback that can make elite plays if he can stay upright. He can't stay upright right now. Don't move the board. It's just Josh Simmons. I think he's a pure tackle. Yeah, I do think there's a little bit. I think he can move well enough on this team to play. This is a team that plays a lot of quick game as well, unlike the 49ers at times where they're trying to get out there a little bit more. Josh Simmons, in the few games we could see, was clearly the best tackle, in my opinion. You get him here at 13 on a line that you had to let go of a lot of people last year. You reinvest in it, keep Tua as healthy as possible, keep Tyreek happy because Tua is healthy and he can actually catch a ball now, and everything will actually work out for this team. You have a lot of running backs that are very, very good. You have some decent pieces on the offensive line. You have the receiver core. Jonnu Smith worked out. The defense is good, especially if you could bring back some people. So reinvesting the offensive line is the only thing that matters. They should double down on offensive line easily in this draft.
I'm into this. I'm shocked that 3 offensive linemen have gone in the first 13 picks, though, for what it's worth. But, I mean, it makes sense for these teams. I think they're kind of filling needs as we currently stand. Kevin, do you have anything else to add before I figure out what the hell I'm going to do here for the Colts?
No, I mean, the Dolphins are hard to draft for because all their fans scream they don't need a line, even though they watch Tua get killed like every 7th game of the season, and then like they sit there and tell you that. I think if you want to win, you're going to have to keep him upright, and if you want to keep Tyreek Hill happy, He needs to get the football. He can't get the football if Tua is running for his life within 2 seconds of the ball being snapped. So just that's part of it. I like that pick there. Just trying to you got to protect him. Now the Colts are on the board. Tight end, edge, DB. Where are you going with the Colts, Christian?
This one's extremely difficult for me, to be completely honest. Chris Ballard has talked about how they need to get a better tight end in there, so I think tight end does make sense for them. They have a bunch of tight end threes on the roster, so like a Tyler Warren or a Colston Loveland makes sense here. But Lou Anarumo is their new defensive coordinator, so there is a need at corner that is pretty glaring right now. And so I'm looking at the available corners, maybe some guys that we haven't talked about yet, but let's throw it on the screen. So Jahdae Barron doesn't really fit Lou Anarumo. Trey Amos doesn't really fit Lou Anarumo. Siobhan Revel does, but I think there's some questions there. Keep scrolling. I don't even know if this guy. Okay, yeah, we're good. I think I'm gonna take. No. I'm not gonna do it. Azariah Thomas, I think, is a good pick here. I'm going to take Tyler Warren, though. I'm going to go back to tight end. I'm just going to – the reason I'm going to do that is because Chris Ballard has pretty much said we need a better player here. And while Louis Anarumo is going to have his stamp on what this pick will look like, I believe, because this defense needs to be better. But the number one thing is making sure that Anthony Richardson is better and making sure that that is the path forward. Tyler Warren is certainly – going to be one of those guys that can be reliable for him. I think that when you look at what he has done and what he did in 2024, I think he's going to be the first tight end off the board. So I'm going to go with Tyler Warren here, even though I debated getting really weird. But we'll save that for another mock, though.
I will point out, though, like this is a smart pick simply because they fleshed out the wide receiver room last year. I think they have a basketball build. They have everything you'd want. They just need to stay healthy, and they need their quarterback to stay healthy. I think they have a great offensive line. They have nothing with the tight end position at all. They're all incompetent in terms of what this could be. I think you have a really good offensive head coach and a stellar quarterback that can make miraculous plays, and you have tight ends that. It's almost like with the receiving core facing the tight ends, why have them on the field? But then you have a stellar running back in a good running system. It just doesn't make any sense to not have a top end tight end. And, this seemingly is kind of a luxury, but it's such a necessity. It really could unlock this offense. And then you can spend the rest of this draft on defense, which is something they need. They need a fresh influx of young talent on this team. They did that a little bit last year as well as maintaining their guys, and it worked out great, I think. They weren't up to par, but I think it was a solid building block. And I think you spend the next part of the draft getting high upside, obviously, stellar, 9 point whatever on the RAS score athletes on the defense. I think you can make some really big strides for this team in a division that's so up in the air when we didn't think it would be this time last year.
You need playmakers, and when you don't have playmakers, you have to pay up for them. This is him. This is your mea culpa here. You got to pay out for this guy. If you want a playmaker like Tyler Warren, you got to take top 15. And I think really it comes down to if you were going to go corner, there's a tier break at the corners right now. We really got to see some guys really do this pre-draft process come up. I mean, what is Benjamin Morrison, right? Like, what's that going to be? Mm-hmm. Like, there's a tier break.
For what it's worth with Christian's discussion, I think Morrison on that board is the one that actually kind of fits the scheme, but we have no idea what he is right now. And until we see this whole offseason, he's not going here.
It's a hip injury, man. Like, I mean,
he should not go here. I'm just saying, like,
I think you're right.
And last year, this is the pick. It makes sense.
I think you're right. And I think that was like early favorite in the mock drafts last year. I think if I look at my first mock, I'll bet I have Morrison going here. And Anarumo plays more man than what they played last year. So it does make sense. Azariah Thomas is also a very good man corner. I think Siobhan Revel is also a good man corner. So like there's a chance that those guys rise in the pre-draft process here. And maybe Tyler Warren is, maybe he falls a little bit, and this looks different in a couple months. But right now, like, please just let Anthony Richardson succeed. I hope that he has a good offseason. It's kind of on him, but like Tyler Warren definitely helps.
Yeah, no, I really wish he does, just because he's getting a lot of hate out there for, I get it, but like at the same time, hey, he's still raw. Like let's give him a little bit of a chance here. All right, let's go to the Atlanta. This is gonna be easy. I'm gonna go ahead and just take James Pierce Jr. And just give him an edge rusher. He is a pure edge rusher off the outside. They need this. When you're looking at his pass rush, his 2024 stats, when you're looking at it, 8 sacks, win rate was 22.7. I mean, he goes after the quarterback. That's going to be kind of his MO here. This defense needs it. I mean, there's some other areas you could go with them. I mean, I've seen them mock wide receiver. I don't think they need that. I think that, with London being there, Mooney at times, when healthy looks good. There's areas where you can be like, hey, we can get a wide receiver later if we will want to. They really need an edge guy. They've needed an edge guy. Give me James Pierce. Get out of the quarterback. Get after the quarterback. I'll take him here.
They invested in deep tackle last year, even if it was a bit too much for trade up. They have desperately needed to invest in this edge room for forever. They should double tap this position as well as linebacker and corner. They need help in the defense desperately. Like you said, even literally throwing Bijan as the third receiving, and then Kyle Pitts as a fourth receiving weapon with an actual full off season with a new quarterback. Hopefully they can incorporate him nicely. And then you add in, they have some other pieces of wide receiver, nothing, top tier by any means, but you just add more bodies to that room. I think you could have some consistent play.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Where are you going with the Cardinals? Because this is an interesting pick.
It's definitely an interesting pick. So I'm just going to keep consistent. Just pull up the D tackles, Kevin. I think you already know where I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep consistent. Go Kenneth Grant. Obviously, I like Tyreek Williams as well, but Kenneth Grant gives you a good, solid floor in the run game and the pass game, where Tyreek does a little bit as well. He's a little bit more explosive in the pass game, I think. But Kenneth Grant is so just safe and consistent. This is just a good core building pick for the Cardinals. They spent all the money, like we said multiple times on here, on this defensive line last year to make it, an NFL starting caliber defensive line. So now you add in an actual true upside talent. And I think this is a team with this more of a 3-4 scheme. I think he can truly unlock his potential as a D tackle in the passing game as well as the run game.
I like that pick. I like Tyreek better, but I get it. Especially with the build of that defensive line right now, I think Grant does kind of fit what they're looking for more. Kevin, anything to add there before I get weird again?
No, let's get weird. Go. Bengals, where you got?
Do it.
Jack Sawyer. Edge from Ohio State.
I hate Jack. I want to get out of the way. I hate Jack Sawyer, but go ahead.
Yeah. So this kid, I mean, you go across the board and people are like, yeah, the traits aren't always there and blah, 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 blah. But I'll tell you what, like the pass rush stuff got so much better. The pressure work was so much better this year. Look at on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, the win rate of 19.3. That was honestly before the national championship game, and I think that went up after he played Notre Dame. Just a nose for the football, a really, really solid, even if he's not like the highest upside, 15 sack type of player, just a solid defensive line piece that is going to start for teams for a very long time. I think that's a safer pick. And I think the Bengals are kind of in this weird spot where sure, a top 20 pick isn't really where you want to be safe, but also you kind of need to know what you're getting if you're the Bengals looking at this current defensive line. Jack Sawyer is that to me. It is over a few players that might be a little bit better or more highly regarded, but I think he's going to have a really good pre-draft process as we get through here.
I mean, this defense needs a shift fully. I think Jack Sawyer is obviously a good leader and he's a hard worker. I think it's just something that makes sense for this team. They need a little bit of a culture change in the defense. They've just given up way too much.
Yeah. Hey, as long as he doesn't play Michigan, he's a great edge. Like he just doesn't do anything against Michigan. So that's just part of the deal. All right, let's go to Seahawks. This one's tough, for me when you're looking at what this team needs. I really want to go interior offensive line, but I guess here's my question with you guys. Like, what are we grading Banks out as? Tackle or guard? Both?
I think he's a tackle.
You think it's tackle?
I think it's a tackle.
So like that's my question here, because I really want to go interior, but like with Banks on the
Tyler
board,
Booker?
that's what I was thinking. So this is where I'm also at with Tyler Booker here. He's ranked at 65 here, but I feel like that's too low.
That's too
like
low.
I feel like he needs to go a little higher. I mean, but are there any other tackles out there?
So
I mean,
Wyatt Milam or
I mean,
Milam?
Gray Zabel is
Gray
going to be an
Zabel.
interior offensive lineman. I just want to throw in there, Tyler Booker is one of my 13 first round grades. So like, PFF's a little low on him.
Yeah,
is what I would say.
Okay. That's just where I'm leaning with this roster. Because when you're looking at it, they definitely need interior offensive line help. I do like the idea of drafting like Gray Zabel, because I do think he could probably play guard center-ish, right? Like I do think that they could kind of move him in there. So that's I'm going to take Gray Zabel for that reason. I think that,
like that.
Yeah.
So the 2 cents of it, Jalen Walker also makes sense for the same reason you're saying, edge and linebacker for the Seahawks defense.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good call too. I think I'm gonna stay with offensive line for now. I think I'm gonna take Gray Zabel for the same thing. He can kind of get kicked inside out.
Randy gets to do the thing that he just said for the Bucks here in a second, but go ahead.
I know.
He gets to. So that's a layup for you, my friend. But I'll take Gray Zabel. I do think that when you look at the Seahawks and what their draft needs are, they're all across the board a little bit, but this gives them a piece. And this allows him the pass block grade 92.3, run blocking grade 85.4. I think that he could be very, very good on the inside or at center, whatever they need. I think that offensive line does need help. I think in the run category too, like their rushing ability, I think they struggled a little bit this last year with that. And when you look at it, a lot of the metrics have them as a bottom half, maybe bottom 10 type offensive line, especially in run blocking. He just gives them a utility piece. I already know the Seahawks fans are going to be in the comments saying, we don't need another swing offensive lineman. Yes, you do. Okay. And you need a guy like this who could be really good for you on that offensive line. So I'll lean Gray Zabel here. It's tough though. Seahawks are one of those tough teams to kind of mock for.
Yeah. And also their offensive line has been pretty unhealthy over the last 2 years as well, even their rookies and young guys. So it makes sense.
Quickly, super off topic, and I know we don't have time for this. Do you guys say bison or bison?
Bison?
Bison, right?
Bison.
Okay, so I was watching Gray Zabel film the other day, and I had to watch a broadcast, and they call them the North Dakota State Bison. Brother, that's an S, not a Z. Okay, go on, Randy. That's all. I wanted to throw
it's
that.
North Dakota. I don't
Hooked on phonics, North Dakota. What did you miss that? And No Child Left Behind. Like, what is going on out there?
All right, Randy.
All right.
Take Jalen Walker.
Yeah, it's Jalen Walker. It really is too. Yeah, he's under linebacker, unfortunately. I believe he's under linebacker.
Yeah, you guys keep scrolling though.
Scroll down.
Lord, they dropped
All
him
right,
out.
Jalen Walker, Georgia.
So, Jalen Walker, for Georgia, spent a lot of his time really dropping into coverage and defending the run. But I think all of his best plays have come rushing the passer. I think he has a lot of upside. I do think, we talked about Abdul Carter in the comparison a little bit to Micah Parsons. This is actually a little bit more of an accurate representation of that, where the team really needed and they had other weapons, so they used him more of an off-ball linebacker with blitzing, and then he rotated down on third downs and really made some impact plays. I think this is the same thing. The Buccaneers need more speed of young guys in the linebacking room, and they need just another edge threat. Obviously, Tryon Sorinka has made some good plays and made a lot of great strides throughout this first contract. They have to re-sign him, and they really don't have much besides that. So getting a guy that kind of gives you the best of both worlds and has a lot more to prove and a lot more upside to go, I think he should be off the board before here, simply because he's going to test really well. And this is one of those, he's got all the upside in the world, so he's top 10 picks. But him going here at 19, I think is more of a value, like true value. And I do think it's a great fit. I think you have a hardworking team and a really hard-nosed team. I think he'd be a good fit for this defense.
Yeah. It's a good pick. I'm trade-based pick for sure. I think there's still a lot left for him to prove. Ashton Genty to the Broncos at number 20. Okay. I don't have much to say about it. It's just, Sean Payton has said, we need more running backs. We need better running backs. He has already said that. So if Genty is available, I don't think he gets past 20. So I think that's kind of where the
Yeah.
buck stops for him, I think someone probably trades up for him if they really want him. I think a team even like the Chargers, who are sitting at 22, could kind of move up and go after him. I think that would be his absolute floor if the Broncos decide to, spend big on a free agent running back or something like that. But as it currently stands, Ashton Genty to the Broncos.
No, that's a good pick. We don't have a 10. I mean, he'll get volume. He'll Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton, good offense there. I think the only thing you could maybe go is tight end, maybe Loveland, but you could look at the tight end room and say, oh, no, I can go get Fannin or, some of these other guys later that you Mason Taylor type and kind of fill them in there. I'm on the clock with Steelers, and really, this is a hard one because we don't know what the hell is going to happen with the quarterback room, what they're going to kind of look in the defensive back room. Oh, go ahead.
For what it's worth, the owner came out today and said, I would prefer to sign Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. So he is pretty much saying we are going to sign one of those guys, and that's going to be our quarterback. So I don't think
no shit. I knew that, Christian. But
for
even
sure.
then, I don't know. Are either one of those guys good?
Probably not. Well, hopefully Fields is.
All right. Well, I'm going to help him out. I'm going to take Luther Burden. I'm going to take a wide receiver here. Man, could you imagine Luther Burden and George Pickens in a wide receiver room together? Those two guys might kill each other. That might actually happen there. But I think with Luther Burden, I think the fact that, he can give him that wide receiver too. I think he works well inside out and in the slot, right? I think that he can play there and on the outside. They can utilize him in different ways. They really needed that wide receiver too. Pickens has been good, but also injuries and then also very boomer bust. 3 catches, 100 yards, 0 catches, no, off of 5 targets, whatever the case may be. I almost went to Mecca Buka here from Ohio State, but I think that they will fall in love with Luther Burden's traits and ceiling possibility. I think with him and Pickens paired together is a good pair. And I think Luther Burden would give, let's say they do, I don't really care which one they sign. Either one, it gives them that kind of that target hog guy to go get the football out quick to, where Pickens is that kind of you have to wait on it because I don't know if he has as much separation as you really need, especially early in the routes where Luther can do that. So can a Mecca. But I'll lean Luther here to just kind of help out that offense.
Yeah. I mean, I just would worry about the personalities is my only
You got Tomlin, baby. Tomlin be fine.
Yeah, until they leave, until Pickens is gone and he goes Deontay Johnson on it. But, I think this is the pick that everyone's kind of penciled in for the last 3 months. And I think it still rings true that they need to go in this direction. So good pick.
Yeah. There's a couple of situations they could go, but it makes sense. It gives you a dynamic weapon. Yeah. Speaking of, unfortunately, I think Luther Burden would have been my pick. I think he could have been an upgrade, but Mecca Buka might be a little bit too much of what we have already here for the Chargers. The last 2 picks really cleared the cupboard here for me here, and unfortunately makes us ultra chalky and Colston Loveland at tight end. Just retooling the room. I think they've had some good play from the tight end room here this year, but to truly unlock this team, you had Quentin Johnston play a little bit better. I think Palmer, when healthy, can give you some good snaps. I think if you add a big body wide receiver, this will help out. But getting a guy that can play tight end and do that for you, it makes the most sense. He would have been as productive as, Tyler Ward, at least. Probably not Harold Fanning, just because that production's ridiculous. But I think with competent quarterback play from Michigan, he would have been really stellar this year. I think he could truly just make this offense continue to grow. The running backs, they were able to make it work kind of no matter what it was in there, but obviously J.K. Dobbins made it work best. That's why Ashton Genty would be the pick. But if that top end guy is off the board, we're just waiting for the next round. Let's get the best tight end on the board, the last guy that should go in the first round. So, at tight end. So that just makes the most sense. I think they need to attack the edge rusher room as well. They have some vets that they chose to keep last year. I think they keep one of them, and that's probably Bosa. So they need to reinvest in that room, obviously. But let's get the offensive weapon and then probably not have to worry about it the rest of the draft.
Chalky, dude. You're just all about the chalk.
You took the fun ones. What you want from me?
Totally fair. All right. I'm on the clock for the Packers. And you know what? I said his name wrong earlier, but Azarie Thomas is how you say his first name. I'm taking him. I'm going to take him right here. I'm going to take him over Jahdae Barron. I'm going to take him over Siobhan Revel. Kevin's gonna have to scroll for a little while.
Yeah, I got to find Zary Thomas, Florida State.
I finally got enough Florida State film. The reason I wanted to pick him, I mean, he was in Daniel Jeremiah's first round mock draft. There's been a lot of talk about him being a really, really good press man corner. And when you look at, once again, the scheme that Jeff Hafley runs in Green Bay, and the thing that has made that Xavier McKinney signing look so good is they let their safety do a lot of the dirty work, and they press up into wide receivers. Azarieh does that very, very well. I think he's a very fluid athlete. He's got long arms. He's going to be a riser in this process. I think he's going to blaze in the 40 as well. So as we see this pre-draft process continue, you're going to see that name a lot more. I have him graded right now. He's my number 21 player on my board. So after finally getting film, I'm so happy that I have this kid's film, because we've been talking about him in our Discord for literally like 2 months. Like, I don't have the Florida State film. Also, I want to burn my eyes out watching this team play football. But luckily, he was a fun watch. So here to Green Bay, who desperately needs a corner. That's the other thing, is like, they've kind of gone through the process of, Eric Stokes hasn't been very good. They've gotten some good play from their corners, but they just don't have a guy. Jair Alexander's kind of come to his final days as a Packer, I think. So they need to reset that room. I think he does that here at 23.
Yeah. I think him or Barron, or I guess probably like Tyleik Williams, are like the obvious picks to me, And I think that's just a scheme wise, which one you like better. And, the funny part would be that Dane did have Thomas go to the Colts in the second round very early. And I think that's where he is right now. But I agree with you. By the time we get to April, he'll be in the first discussion at least.
Yeah.
All right, I'm on the board with the Vikings, and I'm going to take Jahdae Barron, cornerback out of Texas. And I think, I see a lot of running back talk here, but they don't have a lot of picks, the Vikings, in this draft. And I think that they're going to need here. So I'll take Barron here, and I think it really comes down to, when you're looking at Byron Murphy, Stephen Gilmore, Shaq Griffin, they're all eligible to enter free agency. I don't know what they're going to do there, but regardless, I do think they're going to need someone like this. And Barron's been very good. He's been one of my guys at Texas. I've loved watching this kid play all year. I think he fits in here. I think he fits in here with his coaching staff. They can do a lot of good things here back there defensively with him. And I think he just fills the need. And I like that. I almost went Tyleik Williams, because I do think they're missing that kind of like that, just that big dude in the middle of that interior defensive line. But Barron's freaking versatile. I think Flores is going to like that. I think he can rotate coverages. He has good instincts. He can line up at nickel, corner, safety, wherever they need him. He's that Swiss Army knife that they love, that Flores likes. I think it fits him very well.
He was blitzing the A-gap consistently against Arizona State. The kid's ridiculous.
Yeah. But Randy texted me when that was happening, by the way.
I was also driving home from I was listening. So when I got home and it was about halftime, I was like, why did I hear that he's blitzing through the A-gap 20 times? What is happening?
Yeah. Wild. Good pick.
Yeah. I'm going another just obvious chalk one here. Emeka Egbuka to the Texans. Not much to discuss here.
Dang it.
Yeah. They desperately need more receivers in this room. I think they should let Diggs go, get younger, use that money on the offensive line. I do think Tyler Booker would be a great pick here as well to reestablish a little bit more bully ball. This is what this team wants to do, I believe. But every single aspect of Emeka Egbuka is winner and leader. And I think he can put this team back to what it's supposed to be.
Great pick. I honestly was going to take him at 26 here to the Rams.
Yeah. Sucks to suck.
It does suck to suck. I feel I felt like it might be coming, but I didn't come up with a backup plan. That's the problem here. I'm gonna just go ahead. Kelvin Banks Jr. is still on the board. We've kind of let him fall a little bit. I know. I'm sorry. Kelvin Banks Jr. to the Rams. I think if he's sitting here, I think Alaric Jackson is going to get tagged. I think if he hits the open market, he's going to be one of the top paid tackles. So I think they're going to tag him, bring him back. He had a really solid year. He's consistently gotten better. It's exactly what they drafted him, hoping he would do. But the other side is still bad. They did invest in a couple of guards. So Kelvin Banks Jr., welcome to the Rams. I do think that there's an outside chance, or maybe not even outside, that they go with a weapon here. I think both tight ends being gone makes that challenging. I think Matthew Golden is another guy that I could think about here, but I think once Ibuka's gone, I do think that there is a bit of a tier break before Golden gets in consideration. So I'll just go with the tackle here.
Yeah, Rams are in a weird spot because that roster. It's just a weird build there, and I think a wide receiver would have been a fun pick there. So I'm glad Randy stole that from you. But then you took Galvin Banks for me for the Ravens because I really want to take him there. So I'm just gonna get weird. I'm gonna take Josh Cornerly Jr. from Oregon. I'm gonna draft him there. When you look at the Ravens build and that roster, I mean, Ronnie Stanley, approaching free agency. I think that they're really going to need someone in there. I think that, when you're looking at what Cornerly has done this year, 83.5 PFF passing blocking grade for PFF. He was top 16 in that category. He's 21 and he's young, and they can kind of build around him there. I think that they need that. I think they need to continue to protect Lamar. Ravens offensive line has been up and down the last 3-4 years. Like, it's kind of hit or miss with them. If they can get a guy like Cornerly young, maybe could be a top 3 tackle in the class, all said and done, or top 2, honestly, at this range. I think it's good value. And I'm always interested in protecting Lamar Jackson. So if you can protect Lamar Jackson, Cornerly's that guy for me.
Yeah, I like this pick. Matt Miller, he talked about how I believe he's his tackle 1 this year. And there's a ton of upside. I think we saw some flashes of what it can be. I think it's starting to come together. And I think when we look back at this draft in 5 years, there's a chance that we're talking about, like, how did he fall to the Ravens? And we say that about every single draft. So it just feels like it'll happen if this is what happens here.
Exactly. All right. For the Lions, we're just going Shamar Stewart. We need edge rusher.
You snipe me again? Okay.
It's almost like we've done this so many times together. Shamar Stewart, obviously there's a ton of upside here, but 6'6", 285. I think this is a great pairing. Obviously we've done this a lot of times where we have other guys paired with Aiden Hutchinson, and it's always working out. They need edge rusher desperately. They lost their one edge rusher, and this team completely fell apart in that department. They have good D tackles, and you pair it with Hutchinson, everything works out. You give an actual true upside edge 2 next to him. This defense looks a lot better. If it could somehow stay healthy, they're in the Super Bowl, probably, or at least had a chance this last weekend to contend for it. I think you just have to reinvest. Obviously, they could get some reinvestment in the offensive line. This is a team that I trust to be able to draft some later pieces that can fill in when needed. I think you attack defense yet again this year.
I hate you. I did. Good pick. It's such a clear pick that I should have anticipated it. I thought maybe with Jack Sawyer being off the board, I would have a shot here. Washington Commanders on the clock at 29. And I'm debating between Siobhan Revel Jr. and Matthew Golden here. I do think that edge is a need for them. We've kind of gone through I don't want to take any more edge rushers. Is kind of where I'm at in this class. It's kind of where I think the cutoff is that Shamar Stewart range, or whatever this last edge is, comes off the board. I'm going to go ahead and take Matthew Golden though. I think they've gotten enough out of De'Ami Brown. I think there's a real argument that they are the T. Higgins favorite. So there's a chance that this pick looks silly in a couple months, but I have a lot of cap space. But and I think you can say Jaden Daniels makes his wide receivers better already, which is incredible to say. What a fantastic year. But I think if they're looking at this, they're saying, okay, Terry McLaurin's already starting to get old. Even if they invest in wide receiver, they need a young piece to build around. I don't think Christian McCaffrey's brother is that, just based on, I'm not even calling him by his name. He's just the brother of the good one. I just don't think they have a young piece in this wide receiver room. So Golden is going to be a riser as well. People are getting hands on Texas film. They didn't think he was going to declare. I was one of them. He's my wide receiver 4 right now. So he comes off the board as wide receiver 4, and Jaden Daniels gets a nice, reliable weapon to get open and execute this Cliff Kingsbury offense once again.
Yeah, it helps that Kingsbury's going to be there. So I think when you're looking at that, unless he takes a Saints job for whatever reason, I don't know why he would take that job. But I think that when you're looking at it, this is a good piece. I think Matthew, he's been one of my guys for a long time. I've loved Matthew Golden, so
Yeah.
I think that fits really well. And yeah, while Brown has looked good, and some of these other guys like. They need a playmaker, and Golden he would be fantastic there. I got the Bills, who just lost another heartbreaker to Kansas City. That's how you know the world's not going to end. Once they win that game, that's when you got to be worried that a comet is coming, because that is the possibility there. When you're looking at like roster needs, wide receivers a need, but when you're looking at the board right now, no one really stands out to me there. Elegant Manor, no. Savion Williams, no. Jalen Royals has truthers, but I'm out there. Cornerback would be like listen, they missed on that pick with Elam and everything there, right? It's Elam, the really bad one. Yeah. They missed. They missed on that. Extremely bad there. Gosh, I really want to pick Siobhan Revel, but when you also look at their defense, I think their interior defensive line is going to get destroyed in free agency this year too. So I'm going to go Tyreek Williams, and I'm going to take Tyreek Williams in the front. I think that he'd be huge against the AFC top teams, right? And when you're talking about just who they have to play, Chiefs every year, right? Or Ravens, or wherever that looks like, they need a guy like this that can really be that run stuffer there. I mean, when you're looking at just what he's been able to do this year, the 3 sacks for pass rush, yes, but 16 stops on run defense. I mean, he was fantastic. And when he wants to go, he is one of the best players in the draft class. So I'll take Tyreek Williams, sure up that defensive line for the Bills. They could go corner, but I do think that there's some depth guys there later that they can grab. But to me, Tyreek Williams gives them that edge on the defensive line.
Great pick. I was hoping he was still sitting here in a couple picks for me. But,
he's not.
Thank you for not letting that happen, because I was not going to be able to take him with this next team.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you have the Eagles.
Yeah, speaking of not really able to take for this team, I really don't love how this has played out. With how good Cooper DeJean has been on the outside.
Yeah, timeout. PFF. Why is corner on that? Stop. What is that? Cooper DeJean and freaking Quinyon Mitchell. Like, the corner is not a need for the Eagles right now.
You could Maddox, you could kind of say nickel a little bit. I think this is more DB, and I honestly
about to do this.
I think the best player is Malachi Starks on the board, and that's what the Eagles do. They get the best player and figure out how it's going to work. I think edge is what they need to pick, but the people are already gone. I think at this point it's worth just waiting. So, obviously I like Scorton, and Landon Jackson I think makes some sense, but
yeah, JT
Tuimalau I think could make sense. I don't think they necessarily lose Graham and Sweat. I think they lose one most likely. So I say just take Malachi Starks, and you're going to figure it out. I think he would automatically win the nickel spot for you, but they love this versatile piece, and CJ Gardner-Johnson keeps getting hurt and in fights. So let's just get a younger version and replace him.
Gosh.
Yep. Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, that's what the Eagles do too. It's, Eagles and Ravens kind of have that aura,
Yeah.
If a team can have aura, those two have it right now and have for a while.
They just scoop up value. I think the thing with the Eagles that
From
I find,
Georgia.
well, yes, obviously, yeah, but like they scoop up value. But I think the thing that is, they don't just take best player available. Like they do so well on their second, day 2, day 3 picks that they're able to do this kind of stuff on the first round, because they fill out the roster for the most part, and they're like, hey, like the Eagles have one of the most complete rosters in the NFL, like top to bottom. You're looking at that, and you're just like, I don't know. I guess they could just plug a guy here and they can just play, and they have next man up there. And that's what they do. And like Starks fits that. That fits that mold. He could be a hybrid. They could do whatever they want with him there. That makes the team scary, like just flat out scary. And I hate you for making them more scary than they already are, because they probably should be favorites against the Chiefs, in my opinion. I mean, Mahomes is super god, and I get it. Like betting Mahomes is one of those things, but that roster is built to be one of the best teams in the NFL. We already see it, what they've been able to do in the NFC. And Starks would just give them another, just a scary piece.
Yep. for what it's worth, I was going to take him to the Chiefs. They don't have safety listed, but Justin Reed is a free agent. There's a chance that they can't rework the contracts and bring him back.
Yeah.
Which
He's
is
gonna wanna
why,
get paid.
yeah, and he should. He got a decent contract from them, but I think it was under market value for that was when the safeties were in that running back world too, where they were just kind of getting underpaid. It was kind of in the same time that Jesse Bates had his holdout and whatnot. So I think he's going to want to get paid, and I'm considering a safety here. I'm also considering Derek Harmon, who I think is a good pick here. He's super low on PFF's board.
Yeah. Who would you have as the best tackle here? Because I think they desperately need tackle and D-tackle.
They do. They need both of those things, and I'm still considering not taking one.
Yeah.
The best tackle to me would be Ariante Ursary, but I don't love it. Wyatt Milam, I famously do not like him.
I think Mbo would be mine for this team, but
that's fair. But they kind of just did that, right? With the Kingsley last year, where it's you're kind of going on traits. You almost you can't do Cameron Williams here, is my main thing.
Yes.
I know we need to wrap up this show. I am just riffing because I have no idea who to pick. I'm going to go with my gut and say that this player is super undervalued and should be. I don't even know if he's in their system here. Go to the safeties, Kevin. I'm taking a safety. I've also considered Travion Henderson because I really like that pick that you made the last time we did this, Kevin. But I'm taking Kevin Winston Jr., who I believe is the best safety in this class. Kevin Winston Jr. injured all of 2024, and so people have forgotten how good he is. But man, when you turn on that film, it's okay, I'm watching a Derwin James level prospect that I think can be as good or better in coverage. This is one that this is going to be one of my guys. So even though the Chiefs have needs, I'm going to go with, we're going to replace Justin Reed with a first rounder, and we're going to fill those needs later or via free agency.
Yeah.
Weird.
The Chiefs are
money for free agency, but
the Chiefs are a weird spot because of that money, and then where they could go to. I do think tight end could be an interesting spot. Kelsey has not looked great.
No.
I mean, he's okay. He's a shell of himself there. But yeah, Deonte Walker's another guy. Keep an eye on towards the back end of the first if people really like him. He weighed in. I forget he's at the Senior Bowl, right?
Yeah, he's an inch taller than they listed him at. He's 6'7" or 6'8".
340.
He's a big boy. It'll be interesting there. But hey, that wraps it up. So let me go through some of these picks, and then we'll just go through here. Cam Ward, the Titans, Abdul Carter at 2 to the Browns, Travis Hunter to the Giants, Tedero McMillan to the Patriots, Mason Graham to the Jaguars, Shedeur Sanders, Raiders get a quarterback, Will Johnson goes to the Jets, Mike Green goes to the Panthers, Walter Nolan goes to the Saints, Will Campbell to the Bears, Armand Mimbu goes to the Niners, Michael Williams goes to the Dallas, Josh Simmons goes to the Dolphins at 13, Tyler Warren, Colts at 14, at 15, James Pierce, the Falcons get their edge rusher, Kenneth Grant goes to the Arizona Cardinals at 16, 17, the Bengals get Jack Sawyer, 18, Gray Zabel goes to the Seahawks, 19 is the Bucks, they grab Jalen Walker to be their hybrid edge linebacker, 20 goes Ashton Jeanty, we expect him 400 carries year one, Luther Burden, wide receiver, we're just going to see what wide receiver will finally kill Mike Tomlin at 21, at 22 the Chargers take Colston Loveland, at 23 Green Bay takes Azari. That was close. Cornerback from Florida State. Jedi Barron goes at 24 to the Vikings. At 25, Emeka Ibuka goes there to be wide receiver 2 for CJ Stroud. At 26, LA Rams, they just take Kelvin Banks because the GM had no idea what he was doing. He just picked the best player available there.
That's true.
27, the Ravens get Josh Cornley Jr., tackle. Shamir Stewart goes to the Lions. Washington Commanders take Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. Tyreek Williams goes to the Bills. 31, the Eagles take Malachi Starks, and at 32, Kansas City takes Kevin Winston Jr. We definitely are not on the consensus board with this bad boy. We're all over the place there, but I like it. I think that's the thing I was going to say too. Is we always do these shows, we do mocks and everything, and I get somebody in the comments saying they would never do that. Bullshit. If we've seen enough mocks in the world where we see teams draft guys all the time, no one was saying Michael Penix Jr. was going to the Falcons last year. absolutely no one after Kirk Cousins. So you cannot sit here and tell me that a team wouldn't do something. Like, that is just asinine to me when you make comments like that, because it's just, these teams are weird. They do weird things, and they just kind of make picks out of the blue. And remember, their big boards look a lot different than PFF's or PFN or wherever the hell you get your big boards at. They're going to look a lot different. I mean, you can just go look at the Cowboys big board. He freaking takes a picture with it every year and gives it out to teams before the draft is over. So Jerry Jones has his. You can go look at that. Like, that's just the reality of it here. But I like this draft. I think it's fun. I think it's interesting. I think the landing spots make sense. And we might not be as consensus as possible, but consensus in January means nothing. So, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out too.
Yeah, man. This is the weirdest mock that I've seen. I like that. But that's exactly, like, I get frustrated with people who ask for more mock drafts, but then just expect the consensus mock draft to be what their team's pick is. And, I don't get frustrated in a way that, like, I understand you kind of lock into your team doing one thing and then they don't do it in a mock and you get a little upset because you have to then consider different outcomes. But I've had conversations with people where it's like I keep mocking an edge rusher to Washington, which is what I was going to do here. Some Washington fans are like, we don't need that. We need another weapon. Ironically enough, they came around. They want an edge rusher after watching that playoff game, and I gave them a weapon. Sorry, Carl. But like, that's kind of the mindset of fans right now. It's so kind of influenced by the big mock drafts that I hope people enjoy this one because it's definitely different, and I like it.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. We'll be back. We're getting our rankings next week. We'll be talking quarterbacks. So we're diving into a little early, but we're going through our position rankings on the offensive side. We're excited for that. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Drop it in the comments. What is your favorite team? Do you like their pick or not? And then on podcast, we appreciate you guys. Leave a review. Let us know how you're doing as we're getting into draft season. We'll check you guys in the next show.